My tooth hurt. I had toothaches before, but they always went away. This time was different. It started throbbing weeks ago, and it only got worse. I was supposed to meet my friend Isla for brunch, but I called her to cancel. I was in too much pain. Over the phone, I told her the truth. You have to see a dentist. I know you don't want to, but you need to go. I can drive you if you want. I knew Isla was right. Even though I was terrified of dentists, I couldn't live with the pain anymore. Since I didn't have a dentist myself, I asked Isla to book me an appointment at her dental office. She was happy to oblige, and even happier to tell me her dentist was free this afternoon. 2 hours later, I was in the dental office, filling out a form and trying to act brave. Isla held my hand, just to remind me that I wasn't alone. The receptionist took my information and told me to take a seat. I didn't have a chance before the dentist himself walked into the waiting room and led me into one of the back rooms. He told me to sit in the reclining chair and explain how I felt. After I explained everything, he made me open my mouth so he could take a look. He identified the problem of the toothache right away, assuring me he could take away the pain. All I needed was a cavity filled, and it wouldn't take too long. And it didn't. Despite all my fears, the procedure itself was painless. It lasted for less than 20 minutes, and all the pain was gone. Since it's your first time here, this is free of charge. Just be careful with that tooth, okay? I will charge you for any returning visits. Shocked at my good luck, I thanked him and headed back into the waiting room. I didn't understand how a business could make any money if they didn't charge customers, but my only explanation was that he wanted my repeat business. Isla led me back to her car. To celebrate my first visit to the dentist in years, she offered to take me to Swayze's, our favorite bar. I knew that I shouldn't be drinking alcohol right now, but I didn't argue. Even though I was an adult, I couldn't skip out on celebrating. I conquered my fears and was finally willing to come back for more visits, only if necessary, of course. Isla treated me to mimosas. She drank a pina colada herself. We were talking and laughing when an old woman came to our table. What are you looking at? I wasn't looking at anyone. At least not her. It sounded like she wanted to fight. I tried to defuse the situation and told her that I just had dental work done, so I might be woozy from the medicine. That's why I was probably staring. She didn't seem to care. She pulled back her fist and punched me in the cheek. My mouth filled with blood, and my tooth was throbbing again. I swirled my tongue around, feeling shards of something. I spat them out, revealing pieces of my wounded tooth. I hadn't expected my tooth to break into pieces, but now that it had, I wasn't afraid anymore. All I needed to do was go back to the dentist's office and explain the situation. Once again, Isla went with me. The dentist took one look at me and brought me back into the same operating room. You know, I'm going to charge you this time, right? I nodded. He got work on the jagged stump that used to be my tooth, and this time it was much less pleasant than the first. I really felt him digging around. He settled down my tooth and added a cap. I knew this would be expensive, but at least it took the pain away. He was almost done when I noticed his family photos on the counter. One of the framed pictures showed him and his mother. It was the lady from the bar, the one who punched me. I could have interpreted the events in a dozen ways, but I know that this is somehow connected, and definitely a setup. My dentist's mom wanted to ensure that I returned to the dental office and paid my full share. Who's that? The doctor smiled before flipping the photo onto its face. Then he finished on my mouth and told me to go back to the front desk to pay. The second visit cost me $700. I knew it wasn't fair, but I paid anyway. When I went back to Isla, she seemed concerned by my expression. I told her what I'd discovered, and she was even angrier than I was. She suggested that we go back to the bar and confront the old woman. I really didn't want to. I'd rather just go home and take a nap. But when Isla gets like this, there's nothing you can do. So I followed her to the car to take me back to the bar. The old lady was playing pool by herself. She looked surprised to see us so soon. I know why you punched me. She just laughed. My son's got to make a living somehow. I'm tired of all the freebies." The way she said it made it seem like her son had no idea what she was doing to ensure her repeat customers. He was a legit business, while his mother was violent and awful. Isla waited for me to do something, but I had no idea what. I didn't want to fight an old woman. I looked at the pool table. She seemed to be really good at billiards, and I was too. "I'll play you. If you win, you'll reimburse me for the dental visit. But if you lose, I promise to get a cleaning every 3 months." She agreed, racked up the balls, and said that she was ready to break. "Young people like you can't appreciate your teeth while you still have them. It's not fair." I played dumb and asked what she meant. She reached into her mouth and pulled out a pair of dentures. I was surprised she had those. They seemed so natural in her mouth. Before we'd started a pool game, Isla rushed forward, grabbed the dentures out of the woman's hand, and raced for the door. "Run!" It was such a weird visual. Seeing Isla hold up fake teeth as she ran through the crowd of barflies. I took one last look at the toothless woman, and then followed Isla outside. It was a small victory, but it felt great. This story is inspired from a real-world incident. On December 25th, 2019, an unusual Christmas assault occurred in Avondale, a Cincinnati neighborhood. Henrietta Bush, 32, allegedly attacked Rhonda Lewis after she wished her a simple Merry Christmas. Police reported that Bush repeatedly punched Lewis in the head, leaving her with visible injuries. Bush was arrested on a misdemeanor assault charge and held in Hamilton County Jail on a $10,000 bond, awaiting her January 9th court appearance. Records revealed Bush's extensive criminal history, including arrests for theft, assault, narcotics, and probation violations. This violent outburst added yet another chapter to her troubling record of repeated offenses.
When I was 18, I spent my mornings at my grandfather's house. Not because anyone asked me to, but because I needed to. He'd been crumbling since Grandma passed. 3 months of silence. Grief tucked into every corner of the house they once filled with laughter. His home smelled of old wood, black coffee, and something faintly metallic, like the scent of a man who's been to war and lived too long afterward. Most mornings were quiet. I'd make us eggs while he slowly made it to the table, and we'd sit there, half listening to some rerun of The Price is Right. He rarely talked. When he did, it was mostly memories. "Your grandma hated this show," he'd say with a slight smirk, "but she'd watch it just to tease me." We never talked about death. It sat in the room with us anyway, like the third plate I still set out by habit. But June 7th was different. I walked in, and he was already standing at the door, like he was waiting, not hunched over or shivering in that threadbare robe. No, upright, his face lit like he had just seen God himself. "There's my boy," he beamed. "Hey, Grandpa," I said cautiously, eyeing the oxygen tank still nestled by his recliner. He grabbed my arm with surprising strength. "Guess what?" "What?" "I'm gonna go see my wife," he whispered, eyes misting over. "In 2 days. I laughed nervously, trying to gauge if he was joking. "What? Like, in a dream?" "No, I am going. 2 days. That's when I thought maybe he'd finally cracked. Maybe loneliness had unstitched the last bit of thread holding him together. He wouldn't elaborate, just smiled, settled into his chair, and asked me to put on Wheel of Fortune. That night I barely slept. I kept replaying it. 2 days. The next morning I returned. Same smile, same calm. He wasn't afraid. That's what scared me the most. People talk about death with dread, but him? He looked relieved. We spent the day watching TV, talking about Grandma. He told me how they met, at a high school sock hop in 1955. She was wearing red lipstick and chewing gum, and he tripped trying to ask her to dance. She laughed at him for years over that. "You think she'll be mad if I show up unshaven?" he asked. "I think she'll smack you either way," I joked. He chuckled and closed his eyes. "Good.
I've missed being smacked by her.
The next day, the second day, I arrived at 9 a.m. The house was quiet. No TV. No movement. I called out. No answer. I walked to his bedroom. He looked like he was sleeping, arms crossed over his chest. A small smile still stitched onto his face, like he'd left the world mid-laugh. I touched his wrist. Cold. My chest caved in. I dropped to my knees. He knew. That's what kept me up for weeks afterward. The way he said it. The peace he had. How he wasn't scared, wasn't in pain, just ready. It wasn't a guess. It wasn't coincidence. People think that kind of thing is just poetic hindsight, a narrative we build to make ourselves feel better. But I was there. I felt it. The doctors said it was heart failure, that he passed in his sleep. No suffering. But no diagnosis can explain that smile. I didn't cry at first. I just sat next to his bed, my fingers laced through his, the way I used to do when I was a kid, scared of thunder. And then I looked up and whispered, "Tell her I said hi." This story has been inspired from a real experience shared by one of our Broccoli fam subscribers. This is what they said. When I was 18, my grandfather was struggling with heart issues. I visited him every morning. We'd talk, watch TV, and I'd help around the house. He'd been lonely since my grandmother passed 3 months earlier. On June 7th, I walked in to find him beaming. He said, "Guess what? I'm going to see my wife in 2 days." I thought he was just reminiscing. But exactly 2 days later, he passed away in his sleep. Calm, smiling, at peace. It still chills me. It was like he somehow knew.
There are few moments in your life that tattoo themselves into your nervous system. That Tuesday night in October was one of mine. We were 3 weeks into the semester, and my new roommate Daniel still hadn't fully unpacked. I chalked it up to artistic temperament. He was majoring in visual media, and had that jittery, distracted energy of someone always editing a film in their head. The kind of guy who ate Hot Pockets with chopsticks and taped tinfoil to the windows because the light was too synthetic. Weird, sure, but in LA, weird is the air you breathe. The first red flag was when I caught him unplugging my monitor while I was in the middle of editing. He didn't even flinch. "Just checking for listening devices," he muttered. I laughed, assuming he was joking, but he wasn't. "Daniel, it's Adele." "That's what they want you to think." The thing about delusions is that they don't shout at you. They whisper. First it's the vents, then the lamp, then your toothbrush. Daniel became convinced that someone had bugged the apartment. More specifically, that I had bugged the apartment. "You and Marcus. You think I don't know? Always whispering outside my door. He never says hi to me, but he always talks to you." Marcus was our neighbor across the hall. He was tall, smart, harmless, queer like me. That seemed to be enough for Daniel's mind to start drawing lines between dots that weren't there. I started locking my bedroom door. 3 nights later, I came home from the lab to find my external hard drive in pieces on the floor. The screws and casing scattered like bones. Daniel stood over it, holding my screwdriver. "You hit it well," he said. "What the fuck, Daniel? That is all my thesis footage!" "It's not yours. It's theirs. They planted it." I didn't sleep that night. I packed what I could. Laptop, chargers, 2 pairs of jeans, and my passport, and told him I'd be staying with a friend. His face went blank. "So you're running?" "No, I'm leaving you so you don't destroy the rest of my shit." That's when he rushed me. I didn't see it coming. He grabbed at my neck, fingers clawing like a child mimicking a monster. But he was smaller, frail even. I shoved him back and he fell onto the coffee table, cracking it down the middle. I didn't wait to see if he was hurt. I left. The housing authority moved me into a vacant dorm room the next day. Gray walls, no posters, a mattress still wrapped in plastic, a deadbolt I could trust. That night, I finally allowed myself to exhale until 2:11 a.m. A knock at my door. 3 short raps. I froze. Not many people knew I'd moved. "Who is it?" I asked through the door. Silence. Then a soft voice. "It's me. I just want to talk. Daniel." "I'm calling campus security." "You already did that," he said, almost smiling. "They think I'm gone." The knock turned into banging. I shoved a chair under the doorknob and dialed 911. By the time the cops arrived, he was gone. They found him sleeping in the laundry room basement 2 floors down. No charges, just another wellness check. "He's going through something," the RA told me. "It's complicated." Yeah. So was my poor hard drive. The school gave me a no contact order and told me not to worry. But worry isn't a thing you can turn off like a lamp. It lives in your chest. A week later, Marcus knocked on my door. He looked shaken. "Did you tell Daniel I gave you a key to my place?" "No," I said, frowning. "You didn't." Marcus stared at the floor. "He was in my room last night. I found him in the closet. He said you sent him to check my vents." I sat down. He's spiraling. "He also said he saw your footage." "What footage?" "The party one. The rooftop." I didn't get a chance to edit that yet. It wasn't backed up. It only existed on the drive Daniel had destroyed. Unless he copied it before smashing it. I stood up. He's got my files. That night, I emailed Daniel from a private account. I didn't care what the school said. Subject line: "Let's talk. Just us." He replied at 3:03 a.m. "Room 2B. Bring your laptop." I didn't want to go. But there's a specific kind of itch artists understand. The one where something precious has been taken from you. I needed my work back. I slipped on a hoodie, tucked pepper spray into my pocket, and headed across campus. Room 2B was in a condemned building scheduled for renovation. It wasn't on any dorm map. I only knew of it because Marcus had once used it for a photo shoot. The hallway was dark. Every step echoed. The door to 2B was already open. Daniel sat cross-legged in the middle of the floor, surrounded by candlelight. The air smelled like burnt plastic and something metallic. On the wall behind him were printouts. Screenshots of me in my room, zoomed-in frames from my footage, post-it notes with names and arrows. A shrine. "You came," he said. "I want my files." "I saved them for you," he smiled. "They were infected, but I scrubbed the metadata. They're clean now." "You watched them?" "I had to. I needed to know what you knew." He reached into his backpack and handed me a thumb drive. I took it quickly. "There's more," he said. "Footage of them. I found cameras in my room." "There were no cameras, Daniel." "There were," he said, "but not yours. Theirs. The ones who made you." I backed toward the door, but he didn't follow. "Did you tell them where I sleep now?" he asked. "No one's after you." He laughed. "Lies don't work on people who can see between the frames." I left. I never looked back. I didn't touch the thumb drive until the next morning. My gut told me to throw it away. But curiosity is a stubborn virus. It had my footage, and something else. A folder name, Behind Their Eyes. Inside, 10 videos. All of me. Sleeping, working, changing clothes. The footage was taken from my room. My vents. I felt sick. Daniel hadn't just imagined the surveillance. He was the surveillance. I went to campus security with the drive. They said they'd review it internally, but I knew that meant nothing. I dropped out 2 days later. Marcus moved to a sublet in Glendale, and Daniel's still on the campus. Not in classes, but not gone. Some nights, I wonder if he meant to kill me, or if it was just another glitch in his system. I don't know what's worse, being hunted by a stranger, or being watched by someone who once called you roomie. The story is inspired from a real-life incident shared by one of our subscribers. This is what they said. "My old roommate had a mental breakdown and became convinced that her neighbor and I, both openly queer, were spying on him through hidden devices. One night he started dismantling my electronics, claiming they were bugged. When I told him I'd be staying elsewhere, he tried to attack me. He wasn't strong enough to do real harm, but it shook me. Having someone genuinely try to hurt you changes you. I was moved to a vacant room the next day. I've never felt the same about shared living since. I worked the bar at a cafe on 6th and Burnside. Good coffee, clean tables, decent music. It also happened to be dead center between 3 homeless shelters. So when a redheaded guy in a torn army jacket sat down in our lounge area and started whispering to himself, I didn't bat an eye. At first. His lips moved fast, like he was reciting scripture at double speed. Then his hands started twitching, slow at first, fingers curling, forming strange shapes like he was pulling puppet strings out of the air. His eyes were locked on the floor, and I thought, okay, maybe schizophrenia. Harmless enough. Then out of nowhere, he stood up and screamed, loud, sharp. Every customer in the place froze mid-bite or mid-sip. I came around the bar. "Hey man, you need to leave," I said, keeping my tone even. He turned, blue eyes, cracked lips, maybe 20, 22 at most. His pupils were blown out, but his focus was razor sharp, locked on me. "This is all a giant game. I'll fucking kill you with one finger." It should have scared me more, but when you've worked long enough in a place like this, you collect death threats like coffee stamps. "Cool story," I said. "Time to go." He walked out with no resistance, but his eyes didn't break from mine. Not once. We closed at 9. By then the streets were wet, shimmering black under the sodium lights. Winter in this city is like being inside a freezer full of cigarette smoke and old secrets. I parked 6 blocks away. Cheaper, less hassle, usually not a big deal. But that night felt off. About a block into my walk, I heard a hissing, like a slow leak in a tire, or someone whispering through their teeth. I stopped and looked behind me. Nothing. Then I heard footsteps, fast, crunching in the snow. I took off, not waiting to see who or what it was. The garage came into view and I flew through the door, choosing the stairs over the elevator. Always choose the stairs when you're being followed. Halfway up, I heard the ground floor door slam shut behind me. I didn't look. I reached my car, flung the door open, and locked it before I even sat down. My breath fogged up the windshield. My hands were shaking. That's when I saw him. The redhead, same army jacket, but now he was seething. His mouth twisted into something animal, hands clenched like claws. He screamed when he saw me. "I'm going to fucking kill you!" He charged at the car, slamming his fists into the window. I didn't think. I threw the door open into his chest, knocking him off balance, and then I floored it. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called the cops. They said they'd look into it. A few hours later, I got a call back. They found him, said he was known to them, said he claimed to be a demigod. I'm not even kidding. They let him go. No charges, no holds. They just let him go. Something about mental health holds being full and him not being a direct threat at the time. I didn't tell my coworkers. I didn't want to hear the usual, "man, that's wild" reactions. I just worked my shift, eyes constantly flicking to the windows. A few days passed. No redhead. I started to think maybe he wandered off to some other block to terrorize. But then things started happening. Small at first. Weird symbols drawn in chalk near the back door. A dead crow on the dumpster lid. The manager's tire slashed. She thought it was her ex, but I wasn't so sure. Then one night, I came home to find my apartment door cracked open. I live alone. I stepped inside slow, heart thudding. Nothing looked taken, nothing looked moved, except for the kitchen. A single item sat on my counter. A finger, mummified, charred, wrapped in a string of prayer beads. I didn't call the cops. I didn't even touch it. I just stood there for a long time, staring. Then I dumped the entire thing, cutting board and all, into a trash bag. Then I walked it straight into the incinerator chute at the end of the hallway. I didn't sleep that night either. The next morning, the cafe was quiet, too quiet. The espresso machine kept glitching. Customers trickled in slowly. And then, he came back, just walked in, smiling. His hair was slicked back, eyes calm now, like he'd had a reset of some sort. I froze mid-pour. My coworker Charlie didn't know the history, so he greeted him like anyone else. "Hey there, what can I get started for you?" The redhead smiled. "Something bitter." I locked myself in the walk-in freezer and called my manager. I told her everything. She told me to go home and take care of my mental health. Said I looked spooked. By the time I came out, he was gone, but his coffee was untouched on the counter, and inside it, a single metal washer. No explanation, just sitting there, gleaming in the foam. That night, I didn't go home. I booked a room at a shitty motel out by the interstate. Figured if I changed locations, I'd throw him off. I didn't even use my card. Paid in cash. Slept with a kitchen knife on the nightstand. And yet I still dreamed of him. In the dream, I was tied to a chair in the cafe, and he was behind the bar, pouring hot espresso over my feet, humming softly. Every time I tried to speak, he'd raise one finger, just one, and I'd go silent. When I woke up, my shoes were wet, but I hadn't left the bed. I quit the next morning. I told the manager I was done, that I couldn't deal with the crazy anymore. She was understanding, or maybe just relieved. Maybe she thought I was the one who was crazy. This story is inspired from a real-life incident which happened with one of our subscribers. This is what they said. "I work at a downtown cafe near some shelters, so weird encounters happen. One day, a redhead guy in his 20s walks in, muttering and acting like he's casting spells. Then he starts yelling. I tell him to leave, and he looks me dead in the eye and says, 'This is all a game. I'll kill you with one finger.' I shrug it off. Just another day. That night, walking in my car in the dark, I hear hissing, then fast footsteps behind me. I sprint to the garage stairwell. Just as I get in my car, he appears, furious, screaming and pounding on my windows. I door checked him and sped off. Next day, cops picked him up. He claimed God and stuff and admitted everything. Got a short sentence. I got a restraining order. Never saw him again.
Traveling had always been my biggest passion. Growing up poor in a cramped shoebox of an apartment in Chicago, never having enough space and privacy always made me long for a better lifestyle. Most of all, I longed for the opportunity to travel to different places. I met Jace back in college, and we bonded over similar backgrounds and struggles. We did everything by the book, applied ourselves to our studies, got married, went above and beyond at our respective jobs, and slowly climbed the corporate ladder. After 8 years of that unrelenting dedication, we were both beyond burnt out, depressed, living in a beautiful place we barely had the time or energy to enjoy, and completely disconnected from each other as a couple. Something had to change, and luckily it did. He approached me with the proposition of taking a couple of months off to travel across the country, just the two of us. Jace's hobbies were car remodeling and cooking, so he already had a plan laid out and a Sprinter van that he said would be perfect for remodeling and converting into a motorhome with decent kitchen features. We had 9 months worth of savings, so worst case scenario, we could travel for a few months and go back home before we ran out of money. After 3 months of intense planning and preparations, we quit our jobs, got on the I-90, and never looked back. I used my writing experience to create a travel blog, and not long after that, we started a YouTube channel that grew surprisingly fast. Instagram and TikTok came after that, and our numbers kept growing and growing. Within a year, we found ourselves with hundreds of thousands of miles traveled, a cross-platform community with over 4 million people, a new outlook on life, and new careers. So yeah, van life wasn't the wonderland that people portrayed online, but I wouldn't exchange it for anything else. Our lives were perfect, or so I thought. On a random Saturday afternoon, someone commented on our last YouTube video asking if we heard about a murder that had happened on the outskirts of Idaho since we'd just been there. I was about to answer that we hadn't when the thread of comments underneath it gave me pause. It read, @NannyXO. Weren't they in Salt Lake City when that wedding singer went missing like 2 weeks ago? at Princess258. OMG, totally. And that teacher in Colorado? I think they were there too at the time. Does anyone know? At the Lionheart SU. Just check the video from last month and yeah, the timelines match. At NannyXO. That's crazy. Do you think they are involved? Someone should look into it. I was stunned. Were people really insinuating that we had something to do with those poor women's disappearances? It was beyond ridiculous, so I brushed it off. Except it kept happening. Over the following weeks, we traveled across state lines and I obsessively checked the new comments as they poured in, detailing their new findings to one another. Jace left the whole social media aspect of things to me. He didn't have any social media accounts, so he stayed completely out of the loop. It was for the best. Those commenters were way out of line, and I didn't want to upset him with those wild accusations. 1 month into that whole ordeal, someone left a link to a Reddit post of a viewer claiming to have done a deep dive into our content throughout that year. I told myself it was just a stupid internet conspiracy theory and that I would ignore it. Still, my curiosity got the best of me. When Jace went out on errands, I read the post. It was a lot. The user, by the name of The Inspector Gadget, linked the disappearances of at least 5 women to our cross-country travels. Just 2 of them, their bodies had been found so far, both abandoned in large bodies of water. The more I read, the less sure of things I was. Could they be onto something? But what was the connection? How would he even meet these women? Where and when? We spent nearly 24 hours together, and on the rare occasion that we'd split, it was to do errands. Not even a criminal mastermind could commit a murder in such a short time, in broad daylight, and leave no traces behind. I spent the rest of the day dazed, on a loop, constantly thinking about the possibility, then berating myself immediately after. No, I knew my husband, and he wasn't a killer. No way. Jace was an attentive and dedicated partner. He had the habit of cooking elaborate romantic dinners for us 2 or 3 times per month, constantly gave me gifts, and always made sure that I was taken care of. Hell, now that we were trying to have kids, he even put together a whole regiment of vitamins and supplements for us to take, and created a meal plan to make sure I had proper nutrition. No way, not my Jace. When I clicked on the website created by the family of Maren Collins, a 25-year-old fitness instructor, a photo of her came up, front and center. As I inspected the photo, trying to commit her face to memory, my eyes landed on the earrings she had. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I recognized those earrings right away because I had them, or a pair just like that. I took them out of my small jewelry box and confirmed they were identical. Worst of all, they'd been a gift from Jace, one of the many spontaneous gifts I'd gotten from him over the past few months. I started hyperventilating. Why did I have the earrings of a dead woman? Why did my husband give me the earrings of a dead woman? There had to be another, more logical explanation for that. The earrings weren't even that unique either. A gold delicate dangling chain with a pearl at the bottom. They were probably sold everywhere around the country. Right, that makes sense. Hey babe, you okay? I was calling you. I was so distracted, freaking out, that I failed to notice him returning. I looked up at him, hoping I could mask my emotional state. He would never forgive me for suspecting him. No, yeah, sorry. I'm just feeling a little off today. I didn't sleep well either. You took melatonin yesterday? I nodded without taking my eyes from the screen, removing all the traces of my research. Well, don't forget to take your supplements today. I already got your vitamin D for this month too. A sudden chill went down my spine. Over the last couple of months, Jace had been extra diligent about me taking vitamins and supplements to get my body ready for the baby. But he took supplements too, and they were all easily accessed inside the cupboard. Not all of them, my mind supplied. He always handed me the vitamin D every time, and I don't remember ever seeing him taking it from the package either. No, it couldn't be. Could it? I always thought it was strange how deeply I would sleep sometimes, almost like I passed out or something. Could he be giving me the bad pills? I had to find the truth somehow. The next time he handed me the vitamin D, I refused, saying that I'd gotten enough sun that week, so it was best to just skip it until the following week. He didn't insist or anything either. I also skipped the melatonin that night just in case, but I still slept deeper than I normally would have. That week, we had another one of our romantic dinners, and things felt like they did before. I convinced myself I was letting those people's crazy ideas get to me, but 2 weeks later, things changed. Something told me to check the Reddit thread again, and sure enough, there is another update. They found the body of an exotic dancer who had gone missing 3 months ago in Carson City. We were there at the time, as the viewer noted in the post. What they didn't know was that 3 months ago in Carson City, Jace gifted me a very flashy lingerie set that looked more like a costume than anything else. Not at all something I would have bought for myself either. And when I asked about the lack of tags, he simply said he knew it was my size, so there would be no reason to exchange them. He would ask me to wear them sometimes too. I felt sick to my stomach. Could it be? The next time Jace handed me vitamin D, I pretended to take it, but actually hid it under the mattress. The hours passed by as I laid there in the dark, being as quiet as I could. I barely suppressed a whimper when I heard Jace's voice calling my name. Sometime after, he called my name again, but I knew better than to make a single peep. He got up from the bed and started moving around the van. I didn't know what he was doing since I couldn't open my eyes, but he wasn't being that quiet either. My heart sank when the engine roared to life and we slowly drove away from the place where we parked. That time, it was impossible to not think of the worst of the situation. What could a man possibly need to do in the middle of the night while his wife was passed out cold in the bed? I prayed he was just a regular scumbag cheater and not something worse. Sometime later, the van suddenly stopped. I heard some noises that I vaguely recognized as him putting on his heavy hiking boots, and then the unmistakable click of the door being locked behind him as Jace disappeared into the night. It didn't matter though. I had my own set of keys. After mentally counting until 100, I opened my eyes and verified that I was indeed alone. I put on a black hoodie to help blend in with the surroundings and went out of the van. I tried to think about what I'd read in the Reddit thread and some articles online, and remembered the bodies that were found in the water. Using the GPS on my phone, I found my location and saw there was a river nearby. I walked parallel to the riverbank, searching for any sign of him, and it didn't take long until I found it. Jace was on the edge of the river, stuffing pieces of torn fabric inside a plastic bag, and that was when I noticed he had black gloves on. I swallowed dry. Near him, there was a gray-looking body, so discolored and pale that I could almost gaslight myself into thinking it was a mannequin. Almost. It was hard to see properly, but the body looked weird. The proportions looked off somehow. Horrified, I noticed that big chunks of flesh were missing from the body. Pieces of her large thighs had been removed, leaving an open window into her decayed insides. Why would he? No. I felt sick to my stomach, bile rising up and up in my throat. Jace always said that the thighs and the breast were the best cuts of meat. His favorite, he said. He just failed to say what type of meat it was, and he made me eat it as well. Sobbing silently, I covered my mouth with both hands while my eyes were still glued to Jace. It all felt like a horrible nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. My husband, the man that I've loved and was about to start a family with, was a serial killer. A cannibal and a serial killer. It was too much to handle, and at that time, I couldn't suppress a deep sob. And in the quiet of the night, Jace heard me. He looked up, his eyes searching for any sign of movement as he prepared to attack. I knew then that the man I thought I knew didn't exist. He would kill me, just like the others. I had to get away from there and fast. I wasn't strong like Jace, but I was smaller and faster. So as I turned around and ran, I prayed it would be enough. My desperate breaths were almost as loud as Jace's heavy footsteps behind me. I overestimated my speed because with every step I took, his sounded closer and closer. But I could already see the road ahead, and if I got out of the darkness of the woods, there was a chance I would make it. Except, Jace's heavy body tackled me to the ground, and we both rolled over the damp earth. "You bitch!" He spat in a tone I'd never heard from him before. With his big hand around my neck, he squeezed over and over again. I tried pushing him away, but he was simply too strong. My own husband was about to kill me. A distant headlight briefly passed by, lighting bits and pieces of us both. Suddenly, everything stopped. "Anne?" And that was the moment I realized that, because it was pitch black, he hadn't noticed that it was me he was chasing until that very moment. His hold around my neck loosened, and I could muster a few words. "Jace, what are you doing?" "Annie, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was you," he begged, checking my body for injuries, even though it was too dark to see, even though he was the one that hurt me. "You can't tell anyone, babe. I made a mistake. You can't tell." When wet droplets started falling on my face, I realized he was crying. As he babbled nonsense on and on, I searched around me for anything I could use to defend myself. My right hand landed on a heavy rock with slightly pointed edges. It was now or never. I aimed at where his voice was coming from and swung the rock as hard as I could. He grunted and slumped to the side. "Anne, I wasn't going to hurt you." "Yeah, right. Tell that to the other women you killed, you sick dog." He was down, but not out. I had to hit him again, or I was done for. Like godsend, another car passed by on the road, and I used the few seconds of light to aim at his head again. I hit him hard. I had no idea where my phone ended up, but his was still safely kept inside a pocket of his cargo pants. I dialed 911 and waited on the line with the dispatcher until they arrived. Safe to say, I will be a vegetarian from now on.